Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Efrem Graham. Ahead today, Israel taking out one of the highest-ranking Hamas military leaders during a battle at a key location in Gaza. And we'll bring you a look at how Israeli Jews and Arabs are working together in hospitals to save lives during this war. Here at home, the governor of West Virginia now running for the Senate, and his victory could flip control from Democrats to Republicans. Governor Jim Justice, a strong Christian, tells CBN News why he's in the race. The illegal immigration crisis on the southern border is a top political issue in this year's election. We're going to hear from a group of Christian women ministering in the region to both border officers and migrants. And on this Easter weekend, we're going to take you to the Garden Tomb in Jerusalem, where many believe the body of Jesus was placed after his crucifixion and where he was resurrected. All those stories and more ahead today, right here on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this half hour in Israel, where the Israeli military is keeping up its assault on Hamas, launching strikes in Gaza and taking out Hamas fighters on the ground. The Israeli Defense Forces announcing they killed a senior Hamas leader during fighting at the Shifa hospital. Israel saying he was one of the top 10 senior of Hamas military wing and close to Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar and others. Israeli forces also going after Hamas in other parts of Gaza, destroying an extensive tunnel as well as Hamas rocket launchers. Israeli hospitals are reaching breaking points after more than 6 months of treating civilians, former hostages, and wounded soldiers from the fighting in Gaza. As CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl shows us, one positive result of all this is how Israeli Jews and Arabs are working side by side to save lives.
Workers inside Sheba Medical Center feel they're almost always on a near-war footing.
So October 7th, we got the word that something terrible was happening down around Gaza, and we started receiving the flow of patients in the afternoon and the evening into October 8th, which was the busiest day.
More than 1,000 soldiers and civilians have been treated here, and Steve Waltz tells CBN News cases include trauma, mental stress, bullet and shrapnel wounds. Then came those who had been held hostage.
We had a special team dedicated just to dealing with the hostages, where they get a doctor, a psychologist, and a social worker to deal with each hostage. And so today we've dealt with 32 hostages and 1 dog.
Sheba Medical Center is part of Tel Aviv, the largest hospital in Israel. Since October 7th, they've treated some 70% of all the wounded soldiers.
So we've been learning on the run, and all the doctors who've been dealing with the hostages and even the wounded soldiers have more or less have had to throw away the medical book, and we're rewriting it because from the soldiers' point of view, the doctors are seeing wounds we've never seen before, because every few years, unfortunately, the ammunition gets upgraded so it's more damaging to the body.
It's also affected Waltz personally.
In late October, one morning a helicopter was coming in, and I was alerted that a helicopter was coming in, and a minute or two later was my daughter on the phone saying, "It's Elia, my son-in-law, seriously wounded, landed at Sheba after being wounded by a mortar and a sniper when he emerged from his tank to check something on his tank."
After multiple surgeries and months in the hospital, Elia is doing well.
He's a hero, and he got tremendous amount of TLC here, like every soldier does. It was traumatic for the entire family. Of course, my daughter, they were married for less than a year. He made it out of that coma faster than anybody thought and rehabilitated.
Ro'i, a reservist, first fought terrorists inside Israeli border communities following October 7th. Then came the call to enter Gaza, where he was wounded, then brought to Sheba.
Really, really amazing. Everything that you need, they give it to you, and they do the best so you can go back to be like you was before the war, physically and mentally.
Ro'i feels he still has a long recovery ahead, and the trauma remains, but he's hopeful.
I want to go back to my work as soon as possible, so I can continue with the regular life as good as I can. But I know part of me will still in Gaza. We are strong, we are united, and we're gonna win this.
Aaron, a reserve combat soldier, was on a business trip when Hamas invaded.
I got back from the United States and I joined my unit in the south as we prepared to be part of the first wave of the ground operation into Gaza.
After weeks of training, they entered Gaza on foot, going house to house looking for tunnel entrances.
From the second we got there, we were shot at constantly, so AK-47s, snipers, RPGs, anti-tank missiles, mortar shells. You get used to this cacophony of explosions around you, but you know, of course, that's tough.
15 days later, while passing a UN-operated school, his unit came under fire.
So my commander stops and he says, let's ask permission to go into the house. And when he stopped to do that, there was a sniper behind the school that was waiting for that opportunity to shoot one of our officers.
As Aaron ran back to save his commander, the sniper shot him in his leg, side, and back.
It's incredible, it's miraculous. The fact that I get to keep my leg, that I'll make a full recovery, all of this is not taken for granted.
He's been here about 4 months.
The unique way that people come together here, the Arab Israelis and Jewish Israelis, you know, are united here in Sheba for one purpose, which is just to provide immaculate, incredible care.
Waltz calls Sheba a prime example of how Israelis work together.
25% of our staff are Israeli Arabs. Jews and Arabs working side by side to save the lives of civilians and soldiers alike. There's no differentiation. Something that we do during the year also with Palestinians that we treat from Gaza and the West Bank.
In order to be successful, Waltz says Sheba remains a politics-free zone.
You walk in the door here, we check our politics at the door. We're a hospital with a hope without boundaries. The war is outside of our doors, and inside is the battle to save lives.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Sheba Medical Center, Tel Aviv.
Coming up here at home, the governor of West Virginia has set his sights on Washington. See why Jim Justice is running for the Senate, even though he's a reluctant candidate. And meet the companion who goes everywhere with him. We're going to bring you the story. It's all coming up when we come back.
Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Control of both the House and the Senate in Washington is at stake in the 2024 elections. A key Senate race is in West Virginia, where Republican Governor Jim Justice is seeking to take the seat of retiring Democrat Joe Manchin. The governor recently talked with CBN's Wendy Griffith about what he feels like to be the candidate who could flip the Senate from Democratic to Republican control.
As his second term comes to an end, Governor Jim Justice talks about why his sights are set on becoming a U.S. Senator, albeit reluctantly.
Well, Wendy, I'd really surprise you. There's not a fiber in me that really wants to go to D.C. But when it really boils right down to it, I do not think we're going the right way. And I truly, whether people believe us or not, my dad used to say all the time, son, if you know and the good Lord knows, that's all that really matters. And I do know. I'm a patriot. I truly am. And I really believe in this country. And I think we're going in a crazy way.
With the 72-year-old Republican hoping to replace retiring Senator Joe Manchin, a Democrat, the West Virginia Senate race has high political stakes.
Governor, how does it feel to be the guy that could possibly flip the United States Senate?
Well, it's a big honor. I mean, that's all there is to it, and I'm well aware of that. And at the end of the day, I am a proponent of flipping the Senate. I am an absolute active proponent of being a good, sound, solid conservative, and we need that. We need that really bad right now. The House, who knows what's going to happen with the House, but we need to set it in our court.
Former President Donald Trump has endorsed the governor, and latest polls show Justice with a hefty lead, 57% against opponent Republican Congressman Alex Mooney with 20%. This gap despite numerous lawsuits to some of the governor's nearly 100 family-owned businesses.
At the end of the day, you need to judge me by what I've done as being your governor. And surely to goodness, we make plenty of mistakes, but at the end of the day, when it all's said and done, you're going to find our businesses are rock solid in what they do.
Representative Mooney, in his 5th House term, maintains he is the true conservative in this race. Mooney is Catholic, and both he and Justice are strongly pro-life. Mooney introduced the Life at Conception Act in Congress, and Justice signed an abortion ban with exceptions into law in 2022, shortly after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Still, Mooney refers to Justice as a liberal Republican.
So this becomes a decision to those who vote in the primary. Do you want a conservative? I've been endorsed by Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, Rand Paul, and my opponent's the establishment favorite. So it's a clear difference. Just because you're a Republican doesn't mean you're a conservative.
The criticism hasn't seemed to stick.
Governor Justice is so far ahead in the polls, he says he really doesn't have to campaign that much. He thanks the hardworking people of West Virginia for making him so popular.
Well, I'm with them all the time. I go through a little small town. They don't yell, "Hey, Governor, how you doing?" They're yelling, "Hey, Big Jim," because absolutely they have my back and they know that I love them and they really genuinely love me. So it's really been a big time honor for me, and it's been a wonderful ride.
Justice, who's often seen with Baby Dog, his English bulldog, also credits his administration with turning around West Virginia's hillbilly image.
I mean, all of a sudden, West Virginia now is in worldwide travel guides, a place to come to. If you'll just step back and look at our highways and all the different things that are going on, whether it be our schools and our tourism exploding and diversification, all kinds of companies coming, it is absolutely a transformative change that has happened.
An outspoken Christian, Justice called for a statewide day of prayer during COVID, prays with his girls' basketball team, and regularly posts Bible verses on social media.
I am really, really proud being a Christian. It guides me in everything I do every day. You got to be considerate of others. I mean, for crying out loud, this deal of, well, you're a Democrat, I hate you, or you're a Republican, I hate you. Some way we've got to get some professionalism back into what we're doing and respect and honor for one another. I really believe the good Lord has taught us so much better than that.
And Governor, probably the most important question, will Baby Dog be going with you to Washington if you win?
Baby Dog goes everywhere I go.
Governor Justice is expected to win the primary in May and is also a strong favorite to win in November. And depending on which party wins the White House, the GOP only needs to pick up 1 or 2 seats to flip control of the Senate, which makes this West Virginia Senate race one to watch. Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Charleston, West Virginia.
Still ahead, one of the big issues in this year's election is the illegal immigration crisis at the southern border. We're going to introduce you to the Women of Welcome, 13,000 strong. See how their trips to the region are changing lives as they minister to border officers and migrants. We're going to bring you this story right after this. The crisis on our southern border is the #1 issue for many. While lawmakers in Washington struggle to find solutions, one group of Christian women is making trips to the border to pray for the migrants and to pray for the patrol agents as well. Charlene Aaron is on that story.
A new Lifeway study found that 91% of evangelicals favor immigration legislation that guarantees tighter borders. That same number also supports immigration measures that respect the God-given dignity of every person. The group Women of Welcome is doing just that, approaching the issue from a biblical stance, not a political one.
I've been working in the pro-life movement really for preborn lives and kids who are trapped in foster care or were awaiting forever families. And I was just challenged by a friend who worked really in the immigration space with World Relief to say, hey, does your pro-life agenda, does your pro-life biblical worldview extend to those across the border?
For Women of Welcome's Bree Stensrud, who leads a community of more than 13,000 evangelical Christian women, that answer was no. A trip to the U.S.-Mexico border in 2019 changed both her mind and heart.
I met with vulnerable mothers and migrant children who were also mothers themselves due to the violence that had happened to them in their countries. And they were seeking safety. They were seeking a different life. And that wasn't the narrative that I was hearing. It wasn't the narrative that my other friends in my conservative Christian circles were hearing either. And so it really grieved me because I thought if my girlfriends could see what I've seen on the other side of the border, they would be just as grieved too.
I would want to say to another mother who was seeking asylum that I'm so sorry. And also that you are doing a great job. And that all the little things you do for your kid, that all those little things matter.
It is a sentiment Stensrud believes other Christian women would likely openly share, were it not for partisan politics.
It's very hard to detangle and let yourself sit back a ways to take in the full picture. Because right now, each party is being fed a certain narrative about what should be happening along the border. We should be seeing what's happening at the border as an opportunity, a gospel opportunity, an eternity kingdom possibility.
That possibility turns into reality during her group's trips to the border. Opportunities to pray for migrants and Border Patrol agents abound, with officers seeking prayer for rising suicide rates among their ranks, safety concerns, and help with their families.
Every officer has always accepted our prayer, and we huddle them up in a circle, we lay our hands on them, and we thank them for showing up in some of the hardest parts of humanity and trying to affirm people's dignity as they are approached by them.
While Stensrud points out their work is not politically motivated, she admits disappointment that lawmakers have failed to make progress.
There are just, really some detractors that are showing up and persuading people otherwise. And Americans in general, but conservative Christians, they want a solution for vulnerable people showing up at our border and vulnerable people around the globe. We want to see people work together for the flourishing of people, no matter what party you're siding with on any given year.
Meanwhile, as the nation grapples with the issue, the Bible calls Stensrud and others to take the lead.
It doesn't mean that everybody gets into the U.S. We have to have thorough vetting, and the Lord is going to hold us accountable to how we treat the sojourner. You don't have to leave conviction to have compassion, and just come in and see what the Lord says in the whole arc of Scripture, and let that inform the ways that you show up politically to make a solution for thousands and thousands of people and Americans alike.
I was a stranger, and you invited me in.
There's the verse in 1 John 3.
I think as a church, I think our call is to get closer.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Coming up, we're going to take you to Jerusalem on this Easter weekend for a visit to the Garden Tomb, where many believe the body of Jesus was placed after his crucifixion and where he was resurrected. We'll bring you a look at this historic location when we come back. Stay with us.
Download the CBN News app. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Get the CBN News app today.
As we approach Easter Sunday, Christians around the world reflect on the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. CBN News contributor Chuck Holton takes us to the Garden Tomb in Jerusalem, which many believe was the temporary resting place of Jesus after he was crucified and where he came back to life. Despite recent conflicts in the area, the Garden Tomb has reopened its doors, offering visitors a chance to contemplate the sacrifice and hope that lies at the heart of our Christian faith.
This is the Garden Tomb in East Jerusalem, which is the Arab quarter of Jerusalem, just outside the city walls. And it is one of the two places that is thought to be the final resting place of Jesus of Nazareth. There are tombs here that match the biblical narrative. It is outside the city walls and is very close to a cliff face that they think could have been the site called Golgotha. Now, they closed the Garden Tomb after the attacks on October 7th because it exists in Arab East Jerusalem, and with tensions being so high, they thought it would be safer just to close it for a while, but they reopened it in February. And when people come here, there's one thing that they really want to see, and that's the tomb itself.
We said, no, we need to be open because the gospel must be proclaimed, particularly at this time. So on February the 4th, we reopened the garden.
It would be a real shame to come to a place like this and to just appreciate it for its beauty or its historical significance without taking some time to just sit and contemplate the sacrifice that was made for you and me by Christ on the cross. And the most important part of that story happened right here.
I think this is the most important time to have that celebration because we worship a wounded, risen Christ who identifies and shares in our sufferings, but also gives hope.
Really, the most important aspect of this place is not what you find here, but what you don't find here, and that is a body. The tomb is empty.
Indeed it is. Christians from around the world will gather at the Garden Tomb for a sunrise service Easter morning. Now, you can watch the event live at 11:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday on the CBN News Channel. You can also watch it on YouTube or the CBN News app. Then on Easter Sunday, the service will be shown again on the CBN News Channel. You see the times listed there for that. Time now for your Friday Faithful. I leave you with this message on this Good Friday. Jesus is faithful all the way to Calvary's cross, then to the grave, then to the sky, and then to the right hand of our Father. It's an eternal journey of passion and love, and there is no denying the love of our Father. With that word, I encourage you to make this a good Friday, honoring the great gift of our good Father. His name is Jesus. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. Take a moment, let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. Have a wonderful Resurrection weekend.